Activities are an outlet of your abilities. Focus on your core abilities. Adrienne Duffy is here to talk more about your core abilities. Listener, do you know your core abilities? Why is that important? Well, my friend Adrienne Duffy is back. She's the co-founder of Big Futures Inc., is an innovative leadership coach, speaker, and consultant. She assists individuals and organizations achieve extraordinary and exponential results, as well as having them understand their core abilities. Adrienne, you've been here quite a few times, and I love having a conversation with you, so welcome back.
Oh my gosh, Andre, it's so great to be back.
So, what is about this core abilities?
Well, I think it's really important that our listeners really understand what that is because it has a huge impact on our energy, our enjoyment, our vitality when we're contributing those core abilities out into the world. And the other thing, and I've noticed this trend, is that these things evolve. They evolve from the time that we finish university and then we go into our first career. But then I'm working also with a lot of people in, maybe their 50s, 60s who are really trying to discern and make some fundamental choices about how they can continue to make a contribution with those core abilities. And what do we need to do to make decisions and choices? So I think it's really an important topic right now to understand at a deeper level so that we can make those choices.
How about we first define core abilities? What are we referring to as core abilities? Are they strengths, talents? How are you defining that?
Yeah, I think it's all of those things. It's our core strengths. It's our core capabilities. It's our core competencies. It's our core motivations. And you and I have had some other discussions and around certain assessments that can actually reveal these things. However, when we are focusing activities on those core abilities, then there's going to be a link. There's going to be a link between the activity and the core ability expressing itself through that activity, which ultimately is about creating value out in the world.
Not only creating value, but it also changes your energy level as well.
Oh.
So it's either, like in a way, like for me, I had a job as an engineer a long time ago, but then when I converted that and I'm chasing, like you said, the activities are in line with my core abilities, I got unlimited energy. It's no longer a job.
Yeah. And if we think back to your career path where we've had some discussions about that, some of the frustrations you had in the early days working for an engineering firm. Here is a man, Andre, who has like this natural leadership ability, this natural self-assurance, this natural desire to create value and achieve things in the world. And those wings are clipped if you're in an organizing structure where you have to be beholden to ideas that you don't believe in and there's no opportunity for you to lead.
Right. And I didn't realize that was one of my biggest challenges or frustrations is not being able to lead. Or I remember a conversation with my first boss, my only boss in my one job career, is I actually told him, if I can't lead, if I'm not led, I need to lead. And then he said, then you go find somewhere else to go. Right.
And, you, Andre, have the wiring to be able to say, okay, and yes, I am going to make some of those changes. That isn't good or bad. It's great for you based on your core abilities, which is central to this conversation today. And I look back at kind of my own career path. I was trained as a classical musician. I played in a symphony orchestra. That was the pinnacle of what I could do with that original training. If I knew then what I know now, the decisions and choices to leave that career and pursue something else would have been way easier, which is why it's so great that we can have these conversations and support our listeners with that. However, I realized at the time, fortunately, that as much as I loved the performance and the music and all of those kinds of things, classical music was limiting to me long term because it wasn't as innovative, it wasn't as improvisational. And what I also loved was just helping people realize their fullest potential. Like if I could unleash potential and help them realize that potential, which I did a lot of music teaching in the day, Andre, then that was energizing me. So when I made the fundamental decision to leave a career path in classical performance, I was looking at what other outlets could there be for that. And fortunately, at the time I got into what I do today, which is more of the coaching and other kinds of things like that, that allowed me to not only have an impact, and when I'm doing workshops, there's a little bit of that performance energy that I can draw on from my past. So, in other words, and I think that this is a really important thing for our listeners to understand, the abilities that you and I are just talking about that we had found a new outlet.
Right.
And I think that that's where a lot of people get stuck because they see their current activities as the only path forward. And they think that that activity is actually the ability. The activity's not the ability. The activity's an outlet for these core abilities that we're talking about to express themselves out in the world, which is so darn hopeful because what we can do is then find new outlets if we're really strategic about this.
Right. And like you said, when you're the performance part, like with your 9 quick start, you like to take risk and uncertainty. You enjoy your 3 follow through, being random, change path as you go. Is kind of the performance. You got to follow the script. One note, next note, one note. Even just me saying that's driving
Oh my
my
God.
2 follow through
Like,
over.
I don't even know how I did it.
Right. But then you said then when you start teaching, you found that's the proper outlet. It's no different than coaching today. But within, you can even find these activities within the same industry that, performance is still music, coaching is still music. It's just a different set of activities that was using your core abilities.
Absolutely.
So
And
to
I
further
mean, I
prove
was,
your point.
so passionate about teaching. It was incredible. And I was passionate about performing too. But it also, and this is so interesting, and I think this is central to what you're saying there, Andre, the genre within the industry needs to be shifted. So the genre for music, interestingly, had I maybe studied jazz or other more,
Because that's improv.
it's more improvisational, quite frankly, I might still be doing music. I don't know. I mean, we are where we are, and that's a beautiful path. But the point of the matter is that when we find a new set of activities that release that energy, and my invitation to our listeners is, where are you getting energy right now? What activities are you currently doing that are energizing you, and which ones are draining you?
Mm-hmm.
And if there are too many activities that you're doing right now that are draining you, there's an invitation for you to take note, because we can only sustain activities for so long if they're completely draining us.
Now, the thing is, too, is you identify the activity that energizes you and identify the activity that drains you. But what's the relatable, like the one that energizes, what's that ability that you're using that's providing you that interest? I think that's one of your core abilities.
100%. And what's so interesting is that the core abilities can be transferable to other activities. That's central to what we're talking about here.
And
And
in any industry as well.
yeah, any other industry. And
Yeah.
it's not even career contingent.
Yeah.
It could be community work. It could be work that you're doing with your family. It could be things that you're doing in your career. It's things that you could be doing and leading in your industry. I mean, there is this whole gamut of outlets for those core abilities, but we need to define them. So the ability to connect, the ability
Mhm.
to see potential, the ability to create teamwork around that. I mean, there's so many different ways those core abilities can be expressed, but defining what they are is really important. And then we can start to make the evolving decisions or embracing it where we are right now and making huge decisions about how we need to actually be more focused in those right now.
So the listener right now, at this point, I'm assuming they're going to say, okay, and I'm going to start listing my activities, the ones that I enjoy, the ones I don't like, and to start seeing what or abilities are being used and not used.
Yeah. Is it a
So
relationship
that's part
ability?
of the puzzle.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's I think you'd be able to find a generic or a generalization statement. But to get into the meat and potatoes, like the listeners, you've heard me talking about the Colby, the Clifton Strengths, and the print. And Adrienne and I have already referenced a few of these. That will start helping you narrow in on what parts of that ability, general ability that you have. Because we can all have the same ability, but how we execute it are very unique to each other.
Exactly. And we may have some abilities that are similar, but the whole mix that makes
Yeah.
up those core abilities that are so central to your uniqueness as a human. And the more that we understand what those are, the better it is. So going back to the assessments where print is measuring your why, your motivation, if those aren't met, we've talked about this before, if those aren't met over time, there's going to be an energy drain. We're going to
Yes.
push the window on trying to get them met. How we strive is unique to us. If we aren't in activities that allow our natural instinct, going with the grain is what Kathy Kolbe talked about. If we're not going with our grain for too long of a period of time, there's going to be an energy drain. And then we have these amazing strengths, something like the Clifton Strengths is going to reveal. And if we're playing to those, it's going to be very meaningful. So those are three that are very powerful to put language to the core abilities. So if we get stuck and we are having trouble, I don't even know what they're talking about here. How do I actually put words to that? That's where you can go back to these things, do the assessments, read them, and start to look for a pattern. And when you start to see a pattern, you're going to start
Right.
to see the alignment. And it's so awesome what you're saying there, Andre. The activities, yeah, let's list those. Then let's look at the pattern of our core abilities and look for alignment between those two things.
And I'll tell you one thing. So you actually know your core abilities in your gut, in your heart, you know it, but you've been talked out of it. With my experience, this is what I start to realize when I got all these assessments and start to understand the uniqueness of each, the Colby is how you solve problems, why the print, the why you is why you will spend the energy on it. And then the Clifton Strengths is what you'll spend your energy on. These were all confirmation, validation of what I knew was true, but the outside world was telling me it was not correct.
Oh,
And it had to do more of my environment than the whole world, as I meant. So in my environment where I was raised, you can't be ambitious, you can't be an achiever. Being unique, oh my God, you
yeah.
can't be unique. We have to, you know it in your heart what's right, what you're great at, and to experience that and understand these things. And it gives us a vocabulary, right, Adrienne? Like you're 9 quick start. You're an innovator. You like trying and failing until you get that one success. So risk and uncertainty is natural for you.
And it's not natural for everyone, and that's not good or
Correct.
bad. Oh, it's just
It's just
wonderful to
understanding
know
it.
that. So
Yeah.
for our listeners that are maybe just graduating university and going into their first career. Oh my God, if I had had this stuff back then, like I wouldn't have had to bang my head against the wall. Now that was good learning and I'm really happy I had it and it gave me confidence and it makes me a better coach today because I lived it.
Hmm.
However, we can accelerate all of that understanding. And part of the problem is that the school system itself has a certain organizing structure, and there's a certain set of core abilities that are going to be very successful in that environment. But being
Yes.
successful in that environment has no bearing on long-term success, which is why you have to kind of go through a little bit of discerning and a little bit of
Yeah.
learning so that you can evolve that. So let's look at a spectrum. Listeners that are further along and, or maybe 50s, 60s are trying to make some decisions around what's next. So this
Right.
conversation we're having is absolutely valid through that whole spectrum of listenership because it's on us. And here's what I've learned. The world is not set up to make this happen for us. We have to
No.
own it. We have to be accountable to discerning this and making decisions and choices based on this for our own energy and our own ability to create value out in the world. And yes, we can have great coaches and we can have great mentors that will help us see the way. You and I have both had them. However, it's also on us if a door is presented to us to walk through it and to actually make
Yeah.
some of those changes to be more aligned. That is on us.
And at any point of the career, so like you were explaining before, if you want to actually, I think we're both in the same boat. If I would have known all these core abilities when I started my career, would I be here today? I'm not too sure. Would have things been better? I'm not too sure. But I think one thing that most of the listeners should be aware of, if I don't care if you're an entrepreneur or you have a job, What would have been nice is to know that after probably 6 months of my first job, I would have realized this company's not aligned with my core abilities, or they don't appreciate my core abilities. I stayed 10 years there.
Wow.
So sometimes understanding your core abilities to know if you're in the right, if that environment's the right fit for you. If I would have left after 2 years, I think it would have been a lot easier, less traumatic or stressful, period. It's a great, I am who I am today because of that. But I think like that's why I got my kids. They know their Colby, they know their Clifton strengths, so that during school, they understand if they're fit in the system or not and how to
Beautiful.
adapt to it. Right. So they already have an understanding of what they're great at and what they're not so great at, but figuring out on their own how to manipulate or change the activity to suit their talents.
Yeah. And being able to actually make some of those decisions and choices is huge.
Yeah.
And it's just not necessarily something that is central to how we move into deciding about a career and all of those kinds of things. Yes, I mean, I think you would have made that decision and choice sooner. One thing I wanted to say that when you were talking is using these assessments also, and this is for our listeners that are either making a change, need to make a transition in their career, and they're interviewing for things. I think it's just as important that we interview a potential employer to see if there's alignment with our strengths, our core abilities,
Yeah.
than it is to just get the next job or get the next opportunity. Like, it is also on us to be accountable to make some of those assessments or discernments up front. And the actual assessments can help us guide the kind of questions we need to ask the employer. Because you could have asked, if you understood that you have this natural leadership ability, you could have said, what is the learning curve for someone new in a role with your company before they're able to take on leadership? You would have known to ask that question.
Right.
But you didn't know to ask that question because you were still learning about what those core abilities were.
Oh, I see what you mean. So by having knowledge of your core abilities, you're better prepared to check out if the environment's the right fit for you as
100%.
well, because you'll have the right questions to ask.
Ye-
I'm a fact finder. Are you going to provide me enough information? Or are you expecting me to just take your 3 points and go with it?
Yeah. And I'm
For
an
me as a fact
innovator.
finder, that's not going to work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is the freedom that you would have over time in this job to be able to work on an innovation team or to be able to create something new? Or are ideas valued in this culture? How do you
That's a
value
great
ideas in this
point.
culture? This is crucial because we can ask those questions to figure out if that culture, if that role, if that company is actually aligned for us, rather than just going, oh, yeah, I won the job. And then you get in there and you're like miserable for 10 years.
Yeah. Well, now you just got me to think. The question I should ask a long time ago is, do I have the opportunity to lead a project and just leave me alone?
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
Right? If they say, no,
Yeah.
you're going to
I
have
mean,
20
how
people
you
all
ask
over
that
you.
question is going to be a little bit more
Well, it depends on the
finessed,
person.
Andre,
That's the way
but
that's how I would ask it.
yeah, but at the end of the day, it's a two-way street. Alignment is not a one-way street. Alignment isn't
No.
like this employer or this opportunity is saying, oh, you're so good, we think you're aligned with it. It's like, oh, wait a second. I have an accountability here because I'm going to be living this several hours of my
Yeah.
day. So I want to be sure that I'm asking the right questions as well.
I have a lot of respect when the potential employee shows up with a list of questions and they're challenging me to a certain degree on how it would be a good place for them. Just, I like that and I expect that because I want people to take ownership. And we really, all the team members know their strengths
Yeah.
with these assessments so that we all know how to communicate to each other. That's where we are. Like we want, like for an engineering firm seems odd, but I want engineers to make mistakes because that means they tried and we learn from our mistakes. That's the only way we can grow. And in the engineering world, they're very averse to that. But like, hey guys, are you okay by coming here and making mistakes? And if they say no, they're not a good fit for me.
Yeah.
And they'll know then that they're not I'm not a good fit for them.
Yeah.
And having these conversations need to be had at the interview level as well. And I'm glad you brought it up because it never should have been where the employee is lucky to have a potential job. It should be both ways. I'm lucky to have that person bring their talents and strength to help the company make money, and then they're fortunate to have an environment that they can grow as well.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the triple win. The team member is in a culture where they can thrive. We're able to grow the business. And then thirdly, the clients that we have, or patients, if we're in the medical industry, are actually going to win because we're creating value with these beautiful core abilities with people that are aligned in roles where those can express out into the world. Like that's like the triple win with all of this.
Mm-hmm.
And it's on all of us to be aware of it and conscious of it, which is what we're talking about here today, so that we can participate in a very active and accountable way on this journey.
So now the listeners, this is me talking to you direct. Don't do what I did. I learned all these strengths. I learned all this stuff in books because I was trying to find a way to fix my weaknesses. So my strengths I thought were bad because the world was telling me they were not appreciated. These are to help you identify what your core abilities are. Take ownership. Have pride in it. These reports give you a vocabulary to define and explain your talents, your core abilities. It's you. Don't hide it. I hid it for a long time and it's not fun. You know, really bad partnerships twice and you get into real bad things. Just take ownership. Be proud of it. If it's people around you don't like it, they're not the right environment for you. That's what I learned.
Beautiful.
Where can people find you, Adrienne?
Well, Big Futures Inc. .ca is our website, and Adrienne at Big Futures with an S Inc.ca. If anyone wants to email me, we can connect. I'm passionate about this stuff, so I would love it.
You're very passionate. I always get energized. This is one of my core abilities, is talking about this stuff all day long.
One thing I'd like to say is that you can figure it out without the assessments. It just takes a long time. And the assessments are accelerators to be able to have a language around it and a clarity around it and a confidence around it, which can't really be reproduced in the same way.
I like that. It's an accelerator.
Yeah.
Beautiful term. So core abilities is your core strengths, your core competency, and core capabilities. Capabilities, we got to remember. Your activity is an outlet of your ability. I really like that quote. I'm going to have to share that more. And remember, learning, knowing, and accepting your core abilities will help you find your value to change the world and have fun too.
Right on.
All right.
So great.
And if you listener, if you want me to help you identify your core abilities, send me an email at andre@theimpulsivethinker.com or contact Adrienne. She's actually better than me, but either way, I'm still willing to help.
Yeah.
Just send me an email. And it was great chatting with you again, Adrienne. I think we'll have you back so we can talk about how we can embrace or apply this and how to get it done. I think it'd be a good conversation to have next. So, thank you, listeners, for learning with me. We'll talk to you soon.